What is up, everybody? This video I'm going to be recording something that is also a little bit of a controversial topic in the JoJo community. I feel like every time I ask one of my friends or even random dudes on the internet about this character in particular, Jotaro, and if they like him, if they hate him, if they don't care for him, if they feel neutral about him, it's usually divided between I don't like him or I love him. Now, this video I'm going to be talking about if I believe what my standpoint is, because most of the arguments about why they don't like him is because they feel as though he's not a great character or very boring. Maybe they say he's not written very well. There's definitely a plethora of things that they say about Jotaro, but in this video I'm going to be talking about my standpoint and how I feel about Jotaro as a character and what I think his impact did for the series and JoJo as a whole. Now, anyone can't deny that Jotaro did make a very big impact on the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure manga as a whole, because for one, his part 3 is the most well-known, at least from what I know. You know, every time I talk about JoJo, everyone thinks of the Dio versus Jotaro Star Platinum, Uda, you know, Uda, like yelling and all that bull. Everyone I talk about who has seen JoJo thinks about Jotaro because of how big of an impact he made on manga as a whole and shonen as a whole, and for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure in general. No one can deny that he made a big impact. I don't think anyone here is arguing that Jotaro didn't make a big impact in the community as a whole. I think that's one thing that the general consensus agrees on, that yeah, he did make a big impact because he introduced stands. His character is very simple to get through. And simple doesn't mean bad either to me. I don't think simple equals bad. You can be complicated and good, but you can also be simple and good. So I don't think that's bad. Now, also, I know that Araki, the manga author, he said, I remember something about him saying that he based Jotaro off of like a Western, or like how he sees Jotaro as more as a hero type. Not hero like as an honorable, but hero as in like this dude would save the world, while someone like another JoJo like Josuke is more of just your friend down the street, you know, your good friend Josuke. Now that's the difference between Jotaro and Josuke as main characters. I know a lot of people also say, oh, I like Jotaro as a character but not as the main protagonist. I know that's a lot of people, because a lot of people say he's bland. Maybe he's not bland as a supporting cast, but maybe as a main character, he's not that great. They like him better as a mentor spot. Now, I'm not going to say I don't like Jotaro in the mentor spot. I don't like Jotaro as a supporting character either. I think he did well in part 4 and 6, just as well as part 3. But I feel like I'm one of the people. Now, I'm not going to sit in here and act like Jotaro Kujo is a peak, you know, main protagonist. I'm not just gonna sit here and just ride Jotaro, because I feel like sometimes he does have problems. Yes, I feel like sometimes I don't like seeing the Jotaro fights. At first, when I first read and watched part 3 Stardust Crusaders, I was like, yo, Jotaro's so cool, he's beating up the people, man. But like when I go back and reread it or rewatch it, it just gets a little stale sometimes, a little bland, seeing Jotaro just come in, you know, do some, like, whip something out of his booty real quick, you know, and it's just, like, calls it a day, because that's what Jotaro does. Now, it makes sense. His stand is dumb strong, and I don't want them to change the plot. I don't want them to change the characters to fit the plot. I don't want them to do that. I don't want them to make Jotaro just stupid weak for no reason just because the fight calls for it and the plot calls for it. I don't want them to do that. But I would like them to just change the plot, maybe change some of the enemy stand users, make it so Jotaro sometimes does lose, or I'd like him in the supporting cast just like everyone else does, where it's like Jotaro is the person you call in as the backup. He's the dude that you call in when y'all need something big to take down, like in part 4 or part 6. That's not a bad role for Jotaro to play in a part, but I don't hate him as the main character. Now, he's not my favorite. I'm not gonna say he's my favorite, but I'm not one of the people who are neutral on it either. Because I feel like that would be a cop-out if I just said, nah, I feel neutral, I don't like him, I don't hate him. Personally, sometimes he does get a little stale, a little bland sometimes with his one-liner badass quotes. Sometimes they work, but sometimes it's just like, come on, bro. Like, for real, bro. But sometimes it's like, damn, that was clean. I feel like when Jotaro has really high highs in his part, they are ridiculously great. Like the Dio versus Jotaro fight, the Kakyoin versus Jotaro fight, their little mini fight they had, some scenes with Jotaro interacting with the other Stardust Crusaders, for example. Maybe Jotaro alone isn't the best. Maybe he's not amazing, he's not the best JoJo, even to me, but seeing him interact with the different Stardust Crusaders and him bounce off them with his personality compared to theirs, how Kakyoin's a little more polite, has better manners than Jotaro, more respectful, and Jotaro is more of a dickhead who doesn't care, yet they're the same age and act fairly mature in fights and in general to each other. It's really cool to see them bounce off each other and just have small interactions. Maybe Jotaro talks to Avdol. Some interactions stick with me, like when he was talking to Avdol when he got out of jail, he was like, you're kind of a dickhead, Avdol, you know, but I like how they bounce off each other and have really just like, kind of like charming interactions with each other as a team. I think Jotaro in that regard does well. I don't even think, like, I wouldn't say he's bland like that. I don't think Jotaro's bland, and I know a lot of people compare him to people like Kenshiro or those kind of archetypes of main characters who are just like silent badass people who just come in and beat the shit out of the bad guy. I know a lot of people compare him to those type of people, but one, Kenshiro I feel like is definitely a bit different than Jotaro, and two, no, when people compare him to Guts, I'm like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Guts is a completely different. He's gone through different things. Just don't compare him. I'm not trying to be that nerdy mage yet. Don't compare those two. Literally different characters. Literally, like, come on, don't compare them. But like, come on, don't compare them. I can understand where people come from when they say Jotaro's a bruh. But I don't think he's bland, at least to me. Yeah, his personality is very one note, but I don't think that's bland. Like, sometimes it does work. Especially when he's talking to the bad guys. Maybe he's talking to, like, I don't know, like Dio, when he was saying badass one-liners back, and they were bouncing off each other with Dio's sadistic nature. I thought that was really cool, and really funny sometimes to see Jotaro just have his very, like, straightforward, I don't give a shit when anybody thinks of me, talk to someone like Yellow Temperance, who is very, like, vain. You know, I think it's really funny seeing them interact, and seeing sometimes Jotaro definitely has some ass pulls, not gonna lie, but sometimes seeing what he does, because Jotaro's not a dumb main character either, he's very smart, and sometimes he does use strategy to his advantage. Now, I'm not gonna say, oh, well, he's like Kakyoin, you know, he's like peak strategist over here. I'm not gonna say that, but I don't think Jotaro is stupid, and I think sometimes he does find creative ways to beat the bad guy, or the enemy stand user, or the stand of the weak. And his design. I love his design. I think it's amazing. It's perfect. It works for Jotaro and what he does. And the anime, he's black and gray. I think it's not. I don't like that. Some changes in the anime I do like changing Giorno from blue to pink was a good change. I did like the more like pink shirt, brighter colored Jotaro with a sense of style. In the manga, at least, I thought that was cooler. And I also do like Jotaro in the later parts as well, because I like seeing how he deals sometimes. He, like, especially when he was looking at the picture of the Stardust Crusaders, or when he's thinking about what they did, or what he's overcome sometimes, seeing him just think and how he handles these things in later parts. I really do like that Jotaro does that, and it's not just like, I don't care about the Stardust Crusaders, that's the past, whatever. I like that he does remember them, and he still has a soft spot for each and every one of those dudes that he traveled across the world with. I feel as though Jotaro does have some type of development and growth throughout the parts. I feel as though he's more mature. Yes, he's still rude, but I think he's a little less rude later. Like when in part 4 he's talking to those girls, I don't think he cussed at them. He's a grown-ass man for one. He's not. I don't know about that, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't as rude as how he normally was. Like, for example, when they were fighting Greyfly in part 3, he pushed those flight attendants out the way. He was like, "Get out the way, bitch," you know, like, I think he's definitely still rude. I wouldn't say change him and be like he's not a rude douchebag sometimes, but you know, at least he's somewhat improving and isn't just calling people bitches and shit like that. You know, I think that's cool. And also, I think his white is okay in part 4. I don't like it too much. His part 5 design was cool, but we barely seen him in that part. And part 6 was alright. I didn't like the snake pants as much as a lot of other people, but it was alright. Just seeing him in part 6 was cool. And seeing him almost lead the team in part 6, going from kind of the dude who's just like the cavalry in the back in part 3 and part 4 to the leader in part 6 kind of towards the end fight was pretty cool. I did enjoy that, and I like how Jotaro is not like a lot of the other main characters were, or some of the other shonen main characters where they're just like, don't get me wrong, I don't hate Goku, I don't hate Luffy, I love Goku, Luffy, I love these type of shonen protagonists, but I like how Jotaro is more of just like, I don't give a fuck type of person, you know. I like the Chainsaw Man protagonist. I didn't finish reading Chainsaw Man, but I watched all of the show from what it's out, and how he's just like a pervert, you know. Bruh. I think that's kind of a cool, different spin. Also, Jotaro's like dumb old, like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 3 came out a while back, so I think even for this time, that was a cool like take, you know, back to the Western, like Wild West kind of shit like that Jotaro gave off. So I don't think Jotaro is, I don't think he's a bad character. I don't think he's peak, and he's not my favorite, but I don't hate him. You know, I don't think he's trash. He's not a garbage character by far. I don't think that by any means. If I like him better as a supporting role, like he did in part 4 or 6, even 5 for a little bit, than main protagonist role, I don't hate him as the main protagonist. I don't even think he's trash as the main protagonist. I think he's a pretty solid, I think he's good. I like him as a main protagonist, but I will admit I do like him better as the supporting role, like especially in part 4. I thought he was perfect in that role. I thought he was amazing. I don't know if that's just me being like, I love seeing Jotaro again. I was so hyped to see him again after all, like, from part 3. Like, I love how much he grew and isn't like, that's none of that. I just do like him better as that role. And that's not saying, I like it more as that because it was a build-up. We did see him in part 3 do his thing, but now after his journey was over, he still stayed around and sticked around to help with Josuke and all that even after. Kind of like Joseph did, but I like how Jotaro's actually, I'm not going to say Joseph in part 3 was useless, but he was kind of a bruh. He was very useful, but I kind of like Jotaro being like more so mature about things. He's more like, he's just as intelligent as Joseph while still being a powerhouse of a dude. I think that's great fit for Jotaro. I don't hate him as a main character, but I do like him. So that's just my take on what Jotaro is and how he is as a main character. I love Jotaro. He's my boy. I'm not gonna deride him like some of those other people, but I'm not gonna sit here and just trash on him like he does nothing or he's garbage in general, even as a main character. I don't think he's trash main character. I think he's definitely a pretty solid, and I like him personally as the main character as well. But that's gonna be it for this video, y'all. That's my opinion on Jotaro. Peace.